One unique job resume and the prospect of a good relationship. How does it relate? Word to the wise. So the other day I'm talking to my friend Will, right? And he wants me to take a look at a resume that he created for a new job he was applying for. Now, the resume that he created was really, really cool. I mean, it was a situation where it was like a beautiful piece of graphic artwork almost more than a resume. But the thing about it was that the information that was listed on the resume totally embodied who Will was as a person. I mean, like, he couldn't have been more spot on than what he did when he created this resume. When we were talking about it, I told him how much I liked it, how much I loved it, how beautiful it was. But the question was, what happens if you end up in a situation where you apply for a job and they don't even look at your qualifications because the resume is not what they expect it to be? And Will said something very, very interesting to me. Will said, Wize, listen, man, if they don't take me or they don't look at my qualifications because they don't like the way my resume looks, then for real, I don't even want to work at a job like that. And that led me to something very, very interesting. I've realized that in a lot of cases, if you apply for a job the way Will's doing it, he's putting himself totally out there on the line. Like, this is who I am. This is my personality. This is what you're going to get when I walk through the door. And he says if a company or a job is going to reject him for that, then honestly, it's a good thing that he doesn't get the job. But I thought about how many people apply for jobs every day, and they make sure they put themselves in a position where the company will look at them more than actually presenting who they are on the resume. And it reminded me a lot of relationships. You see, I think we do the exact same thing when it comes to relationships. You meet a person and you're more concerned about showing that person what you think they may want, what you think an ideal man or woman is to that person. And what happens is over time, you end up being in a situation where the real you starts to come out, and then we have problems. It's the initial presentation versus the truth and reality. I'm gonna say that again. It's the initial presentation versus the truth and reality. And I believe the closer that those two things are to being the exact same thing, the better off you are in any situation you're into, whether it be a job or a relationship. Because the ultimate question is this: do you want to get what you want from a person or a company, or would you rather be happy in a job or relationship? That's the million-dollar question. Now, granted, if you want to get what you want from a person, when it comes to relationships, that's more like using a person. You know, it's like using a job. Now, in the job market, using somebody is not necessarily a bad thing because we all use each other. But when it comes to people and relationships, I think it's a very, very sad thing when you want to get what you want from a person, so you present something other than who you are in order to con them out of what you want. Now, here's the thing. I think you end up with several or one of several scenarios whenever you're in this situation, right? The first one is what I call a lose-lose situation. So let's take, for example, the job. A lose-lose situation, which is deceptive, right? Because people may think it's a win, is when you actually present yourself as other than you are on your resume or your interview process. Get the job, and you end up in a situation where you're in a job that you hate, and the company has an employee on the records that's not doing the best possible job that they could have, where that position could have been filled by somebody who was better suited for that position. Now, how does that relate to relationships? If you're in a relationship with somebody, or you're trying to start a relationship with somebody, right? And you end up in a situation where you start to present yourself as other than you are. Even if you get the relationship, ultimately, it's a lose-lose because you are not really compatible with the person that you're with. The presentation that you gave was compatible with that person, but who you really are, the more it starts to seep out over time, creates issues because that's not what that person wants from you or wanted to begin with or expects you to be. Now, the second situation is a lose-win. You lose, they win. How's that work? Well, in a job situation, you end up getting a job, right? Because you presented yourself as other than what you are. You're in the job, you're working the job, but you're miserable because you really didn't want to be in that kind of position. But because of the kind of integrity you have as an employee, you're doing a great job. So the job is happy, but you're miserable. That's a problem. How does that relate to relationships? Well, you find yourself in a relationship, and I've talked to so many women in particular, but I'm sure this happens for men too, where you end up putting yourself in a situation where you present yourself other than you are in the beginning. You get the relationship and you're a good man or woman, you're a good partner. So you do everything to make your partner happy. Your partner's in love, your partner's, they're getting everything they want from the situation, but the reality is you're miserable because you're in a relationship that's really not best suited for who you are. So you constantly have to shield yourself off or hide yourself based on the fear that one day the person will see who you really are and not want to be with you anymore. So in actuality, they win, but you lose. The next is a win-lose. And a win-lose is a situation where you win, but the job or the other person loses. So as the job goes, you get in a situation where you get the job that you want. You get the job, you get the paycheck, but you're not the model employee. You're not what they expected you to be. Now this is very, very common as it relates to relationships, because what happens is, particularly, and men do this so much all the time, and I tell you, I want to punch you guys in the face when I think about these things. Men and women present themselves with what's called game. The game is always an inauthentic person's way of faking authenticity. I'm gonna say that again because that's important. Game is an inauthentic person's way of faking authenticity. So what happens is a guy comes up and presents himself as a smooth, good guy, the kind of guy you want to be with. You know, he gives you all the right lines, he says all the right things, he takes you all the right places. In his mind, he just wants to get you for one thing, whether that be sex, whether that be just to have a piece of arm candy, for whatever. There's a million reasons why a person would do something like this. So he wins, but the person that you get ends up losing. And I used to be a realtor, and when I was in real estate, I used to work for a company called Keller Williams that had a really, really good saying that they constantly stressed around the office. Win-win or no deal. I think we should go about our situations in life the exact same way. If both parties aren't going to win, then we might as well not do business at all. So for a job situation, a win-win could be one of two things. Either one, you apply for a job that you really, really like, and you apply being yourself, and they say, hey, you know what? You're the perfect person to fill this position. Come on in, let's get to work. You like them, they like you, everything's good. Now, win-win for relationships, the same thing. Present yourself as yourself from the beginning. So if you can present yourself in a way from the beginning that is authentically you. I mean, when you go out on the first date, you're dressed the way you normally dress. You ask to do the things you like to do. You're honest about what you like, what you don't like, who you are, who you're with everything that goes on, everything that you just put it out on the table. When you find a person who sees that and says, you know what, I dig it, I like it, it fits perfectly with who I am, then you end up in a win-win situation. You see, the ultimate question is something better than nothing? Is something better than nothing? Would you rather have something that is not at all compatible with who you are in order to fill the void or to fill the space? There's an old saying, you know, a closed hand cannot receive. So if you're in a situation where you want something so bad that you're willing to go out and be inauthentic to get it, when you're willing to present yourself as other than what you are to get it, you have to hold on to that. And when you're holding on to that, your hand is not in a receiving position to get what you really might want. When you find yourself in a relationship simply because you want to have something, it clogs up your life so that there's no room for what you really want to enter in. So ultimately, you gotta ask yourself this question. Is it really about me getting what I want, or is it really about me wanting what I get? If you want what you get, you're much better off, because you and it will be compatible, whether it be a job or another human being in relationship. If your most authentic self is not attracted to that person, then that person really shouldn't be attracted to you. Think about that. I'll see you on the next video. Peace and love.